Hey everybody, and welcome to Twin Talk, a video discussion show where twin brothers Chris and Kevin drink and draw. We're talking about comic books, movies, and all things pop culture. We are your hosts, Chris Hart,
Kevin Hart,
and today we're going to be talking about Marvel's What If.
Stick around to the end of the episode to see how our drawing of The Watcher came out. And if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel for more content.
This is Marvel's first animated series within the MCU. We know that they've got their shows on Disney+. We went through WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki. And none of them really delivered to the hype of what we were hoping to have with Marvel Television. They were all solid because it's Marvel stuff, so it is still genuine entertainment. But none of it really lived up to our hype, so we were really hoping that What If would turn things around. Unfortunately, in the beginning, I really felt it was more of the same of a letdown.
It was kind of like a slow burn. Yeah. I was like, uh-oh.
Especially with the week by week. Knowing what it is now, seeing the finale, you could see that
in retrospect,
it benefited from week by week. Yeah, but I was hoping that they would just release it all at once. Like, for instance, if you've checked out Star Wars Visions on Disney+, they released them all at once, and it was all different animators, different art styles, telling different stories of their own, almost like an anthology. That's kind of what I was hoping that Marvel's What If would be. I wanted to see different people's art styles, different animation, get wacky with it, go crazy with it, get some of the best artists and animators out there to deliver some of the stories that they can't do in the MCU timeline because everything's connected. Like, for instance, like one of my favorite what ifs in a comic book was what if the Punisher became Captain America? I want to see something like that directed in a gritty, like film noir animation style. Like, that'd be so sick.
That's the coolest part about this series, is like the comic book series. You could have a lot of fun with this, right?
Yeah.
You could do
whatever you want.
Limitless storytelling potential. So that's what I liked about this, and that's why at first when I was watching this week by week, I was very underwhelmed. I was like, this, for a show called What If with the limitless potential, it felt so anchored by the connection to the MCU.
Very safe.
Yeah, it felt so simple, so safe. I was like, this is going to be a disappointment. Even the art direction, I was like, I'm still not a huge fan of it.
I wasn't feeling it. The more I watch it, the more I understand why they went with that art style. It's because it is more of a realistic animation style to fit the actors, which they brought. I'm glad that they brought on all the voice acting of the actual actors that are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
For the most part, yeah, some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Spider-Man's up and rights, you know, and then there's a few of like knockoff people. Even the Ultron, I was really hoping to hear James Spader come back.
Yeah, me too.
But the guy that did the Ultron voice, I thought was a really solid job.
And also another thing I wanted to say was the pacing of these shows. I guess because we've seen so much of it was like familiar in the MCU, it was like very fast, choppy paced. I was like, okay, like for instance, like one of my least favorite episodes is the Captain Carter one. Not the worst episode by far, but like I was like, okay, I've seen this already.
It was very familiar.
Yeah.
Too familiar for a What If series.
And that's why, as I was watching it week by week, I was like, all right, this is a little too familiar. But then, you know, again, in retrospect, I have a little bit more of appreciation for it.
It's still not what I wanted.
Yeah.
But I really like it for what it is. Like, once I came to grips with what it is, it's the MCU's What If. So it felt very familiar because they've set up these movies, these timelines, these 23, 24 movies, whatever it is now, that we're all familiar with. So, like, okay, it has its own lore that they can play with. I was just hoping they'd do more with it.
I don't know how you felt about it being connected. To me, it was kind of cool. But at the same time, I'm like on the fence about it because, again, for a show called What If, it's like, okay, I was like, of course they're going to make this all canon. But that was also kind of the fun is towards the end of the season, I was like, oh, wait, I see what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And the way it connected and the way it was sick, honestly, with the multiverse and everything else.
Like Guardians of the Multiverse.
The Guardians of the Multiverse, how it like brought about that team up. And I like the team too. So like
it was a lot of fun. It felt
like
it's a
fun show, yeah.
Especially with the Ultron angle in this. Like, this is how I wanted to see Ultron in the actual live action films, and just that menacing, you know, superiority that he feels about himself. I thought they nailed it in the show. The way that he looks, the aesthetic of the Vision's body that he actually gets, and then like the Ultron armor, and oh god, it was so good with the Infinity Stones.
He was like
he looked amazing.
He was like their version of Thanos, the big bad that it all led to.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what we'll get into is our favorite episodes. We'll do our favorite 3. That's got to be one of them. Is What If Ultron won?
Yes,
that's probably my number one.
That's your number one. That's gonna be my number 3.
Okay.
It is solid. Yeah, because I remember
that was like
that's the one
blew me away.
That's the one that ends and you realize that they're all connected, right?
Yes.
Where he ends up, the Watcher ends up going to Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
and being like, "We need your help."
He's aware
Then
of the
it's-
Watcher, and I was
then
like, "Oh!"
Then you realize that every episode was connected. Yeah, that's definitely my number 3 because I really like a few episodes a little bit more, just based on storytelling aspects. But that one was a lot of fun. Week by week, watching these, like the first one was the Captain Carter one, the second one was T'Challa, Star-Lord, and I was just like, ugh. And then the third episode really hit its stride, and it started getting a little bit more entertaining. And I was like, all right, cool. And then 4 or 5, I think it was 3, 4, and 5 is where like really got me hyped up. And I was like, okay, we had a few quality weeks in a row. And then it dipped again with like Vegas Thor. But
the foam party Thor.
but at this end, Killmonger too with Stark.
Yeah.
It was all very familiar too. But at the same time, like it's a lot of fun seeing these movies being played around with. It works because it is MCU's What If. Again, like they could have taken a lot more risks and had completely standalone stories in each episode.
Yeah,
and that's what I would have wanted.
yeah.
But for the MCU being what it is, we know that they played it safe. I really appreciate the show for what it is, and I think it's my favorite out of all the Disney Plus shows so far. Overall, what is your least favorite episode from this?
Least favorite is probably the Killmonger one because it was just
Really?
it felt pretty familiar. I was like, all right, we know Killmonger is shady.
He's a douche no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah. It doesn't
no
matter what universe. Yeah, he was kind of like the
Although-
sub villain in the last episode, and I'm glad that he's in the snow globe within a snow globe. Now.
Yeah. That you knew that him and Zola. There was no way that was going to end well. So I'm so glad that Doctor Strange, and it gives Doctor Strange a purpose now, being in that prism.
Yeah.
He has to watch them for eternity. So I feel better for him because I was like, when I first watched that Doctor Strange episode, I was like, damn, like that man lost his love, did everything he could to get it back, still lost, and is now stuck in that prism for eternity doing nothing.
That's my third favorite episode. So my top 3 is What If Ultron had won. Then it's the zombies one. I hate Marvel Zombies, the comics, and just that in general. I feel
Although
like
it is a
such-
Robert Kirkman thing, so
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I feel like
stepping
it's just
stones
such
to
a
The Walking Dead.
I feel like it's such a cash grab. The whole zombie thing never really appealed to me. But when I saw this episode, changed my life. I was
So-
like, really changed my perspective.
First of all, you didn't
on
ask
it.
me my least favorite episode.
And
At
then
least
my-
have the courtesy to respond.
Oh,
to
wait,
my
and then my third favorite episode would be the Doctor Strange. What if he lost his heart instead of his hands?
So you're okay.
That
so
was tragic.
okay. So for me, my 3 is, and I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna consider the second to last and the finale the same, like almost like the Infinity War and the Endgame.
It's like a-
of
yeah.
Marvel's What If. It's
Two-parter in
So
one.
what if Ultron won and what if the Watcher broke his oath? I consider that like a one-part.
Well, I think because if you look at the original list of what the episodes were supposed to be released, the Gamora kills Thanos or Gamora versus Tony, we see that in the last episode, but it's never in. She just shows up out of nowhere.
it's never
in the
addressed.
season.
There was a few episodes that apparently got dropped on the cutting room floor.
or because I heard it was like COVID scheduling conflicts.
No. Bull crap. It's COVID. They could record this from their bedroom. They can record this from the toilet.
Yeah.
And you just pay them the money. Like anyone can like literally send you a cell phone. Any Android or iOS device these days, you can record it and they can soup that thing up in post production. So no excuse. It's an animated show. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. But as far as that goes, I know there was a Spider-Man episode I think they dropped.
Really?
Yeah, there was a couple things. Oh, what if Steve Rogers became president was one that they dropped.
That was like
It was
in another
hinted
episode.
towards
Yeah,
in one episode. So
that's kind of cool.
that was cool that they threw it in there. But the writers were like, basically like they had to let it go because it was too political.
I mean, Steve Rogers is basically the president of the United States of America. If you look at Joe Biden, he is the exact incarnation of old man Steve in Endgame. Dude, it's uncanny.
Actually, now that you said that, they do look pretty similar. Joe Biden does look like old Steve. Just gives the shield back to Obama. My least favorite episode, unfortunately, has to be the second episode, which is what if T'Challa became a Star-Lord. It was too familiar.
Really?
It was way too familiar for me. I don't care about the Ravagers, and
I like the Collector. He was more of a threat. He was more like
yeah, I was literally falling
Expounded
asleep
upon.
watching that episode. Though I was like, this is not getting me at all. And then at the end, when you realize that like Chris Pratt's Star-Lord like became like a loser that worked at Dairy Queen, like that was pretty fun. It was like, okay, so like if they didn't pick him up, he just would have like become this like air guitar mop player like in a
that's
Dairy
another
Queen.
thing too. Is like I feel like that was an episode, even the Watcher, I think, says, like, oh, that's a story for another time. So it seems like there was a lot that was, like you said, either cut or we're waiting. Obviously, there's a season 2, so it makes sense.
There's definitely a season 2.
How they expand upon it. Jeffrey Wright, too. Amazing job as the Watcher.
Dude killed it. Yeah.
I want to see him live action. Yes,
That'd be
because
cool.
now that
That'd be pretty cool.
Now that we've established that this has effects on the multiverse, give us the Guardians of the Multiverse,
Galactus, baby,
and give us the Watcher live action. That would be, oh my goodness.
Everything's connected now at this point because the multiverse is like almost like
even the garbage movies, they exist because of the multiverse.
It reminds me of like Fairly Odd Parents when Timmy Turner was asked how he got all these awesome things. He's like, internet, multiverse. You know, like it's the equivalent of that.
And that's the thing too, is like if anyone's seen Venom Let There Be Carnage, when that wave of energy is coming, that's what intrigues me the most. Is that Doctor Strange's spell? Is that Loki's events?
What's the catalyst?
What's the catalyst that sets this off? Like, and then, or is it like the Watcher getting punched and all the different realities changing? That was so sick.
But like I was saying, so my least favorite was definitely the T'Challa Star-Lord one. It just, I was falling asleep, had nothing for me.
My runner-up episode of my most favorite would have to be What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? To see Hank Pym and his power not as a comedy, and more of as a threat, because it really is a threat. Like
when used right, it's not funny. It's really scary.
It's serious stuff, people. Yeah.
And the guy like Hank Pym from the comics, like he's a threat too because he's like lost his mind several times. Like he has like anxiety. he has like really bad like anxiety and PTSD from different things and like almost like self-hatred. And then like just put that power that he has coupled with like all these different things. Recipe for disaster. So that episode, it was cool that they highlighted Hank Pym because I always felt Hank Pym was kind of like an afterthought in the Ant-Man movie.
I did like too how it was like a whodunit, like Clue,
like a murder mystery. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Like that episode, I remember just being like, who's behind it? Like, and I wanted to be like one step ahead, be like, I'm trying.
I thought it was Loki, but it wasn't.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Number 2 is definitely gonna be that Doctor Strange episode because it just hits so hard emotionally.
Yeah.
That episode just. For such a confined story,
that episode broke me.
I was so sad when he was trying to like save her, and over again, it just wasn't happening. I was like, damn, like this really hits hard, and like especially for an animated show, you don't expect them to go to those emotional, depths of storytelling. So I really appreciated that. And then my number 1, just because it was a hella good time, the zombie episode. The zombie episode to me felt like I want to see that zombie episode made into a live action movie because it was so much fun. Scott Lang's head in a tube with the cape.
So bizarre.
With Doctor Strange's cape like carrying him, and like he was a comedic beat, and the whole world is dying of this zombie virus. And when zombies are done well, it's so effective.
It was like the I Am Legend of Marvel. Yeah, it was cool.
It was just really cool seeing like Spider-Man and all these different people like make like they were like the only survivors basically, and it was so sick how Spider-Man set up like the school buses and dump trucks up there to be like their little like safe quarters or whatever. I just love all these characters. Like they have really, Marvel's done such a good job making these movies and all these characters that you love them, so that even when What If like you see all these different variants basically, you're just rooting for them because you're just so in love with these stories and these characters and films. With season 2 confirmed, I was a little confused though because season 1 had crazy stakes at the end with the multiverse being the whole every living being ever made. So where do you go from there?
That's the beauty of this show, is it's limitless potential, limitless storytelling ideas. And so I kind of want to see the writers have a little bit more freedom with that, not being so tied down to the MCU and kind of going in the direction of like one-offs and like more stakes, like personally in the episode, because it feels like a Twilight Zone of Marvel, and that's what I like, is that some of them can end on a good note, some of them can end on a really morbid note, and so that's why I want to see going forward is more standalones.
But at the same time, like we saw that it's all connected, so where do they go from here? Who knows? But with the stakes that they put in that first season, I was really impressed with how balls to the wall they went with that, with the Guardians of the Multiverse versus Ultron with Vision's body and the stones. It was really impressive to me the way they did that, and the way they connected it saved this series for me from being a letdown.
Yes.
To being, I really appreciate this show for what it was. MCU's What If. So check out next season. What if Chris had 2 testicles?
Anyway, Anyways, that about wraps up today's episode of Twin Talk. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below to join the discussion, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll see you next time. Peace!